Hello Internet, I'm Stephanie and I'm here again with another video, just laying the foundation for my approach to using tarot cards and oracle cards as a tool for self-reflection, as a guide to get in touch with my own intuition, and as a way to help me understand how I think, how I feel, so that I can navigate decision making in a way that is intuitive, effective, and that leads me to feeling confident and happy with the results of my decision making process. Now, I again want to make it very clear that it's about the results of the decision making and not necessarily the results of life as it continues to play out. So, one of the best ways to ensure that you are getting helpful advice from your cards is to make sure you are asking your question in the most useful way. So a lot of people, when they think of tarot, they think of fortune telling, predicting the future, right? And I was watching Spider-Man with my son and my partner the other day, and there's a little scene in this one episode where they go to a fortune teller and she kind of just yells across the street saying, "Oh, I see fame and money in your future," right? And a lot of people are skeptical about tarot and oracle cards for this reason, because it feels a little fish hooky, right? Like, oh, if you follow my advice, you will have fame and fortune. Of course, it's tempting to want to be reeled in by that and to see where this goes and to want to believe in that advice. But of course, there's the chance that it might be false advice, right? So how do you navigate through questions like that? So just to illustrate that as an example, this is a type of question that I do not like to ask personally, and it is a will I question. You can use this for will they, do they, and I'll show you what I mean here. So this is my chart that I've been using with the Punnett square. Now typically up here I've got as variable A, it's going to be the result of a yes or no question, whether you flip a coin or go to a tarot reader or ask your friend, you know, should I cut my hair and dye it pink? They're either going to say yes or they're going to say no, right? And typically on this side is variable B, I've been using, how do I feel about this answer? Does it confirm to me what I already know? Does it feel good to me? Does it make me feel excitement or does it make me feel fear, right? And really getting in touch with your feelings. Now, this is not really a useful variable when you are asking a will I question. So for example, will I win $1 million in the lottery tomorrow, right? So the card or the coin is either going to say yes or it's going to say no. Of course, if it says yes, typically, so this is my feelings chart that I have here. So typically, if you get the response yes, you're going to win $1 million, you're going to feel happy about it. It's going to be double yes. You don't even have to go down here on the chart, right? For the yes column. And if you see no, you're not going to win $1 million, of course, you're going to be unhappy with it. So what you have here is you're working with these two only, right? And that's not very helpful. Obviously, you're going to be unhappy to not win, and obviously you're going to be, right, happy to win. So instead of using that as the variable here, what I'm going to use instead for a will I question is the outcome of the answer and whether or not that actually ends up happening, whether that actually comes true, right? And so what you're going to find is, again, by looking at this chart, it's 50-50. Maybe the tarot reader says, yes, this is your lucky day, right? Maybe that doesn't come true. Maybe they say, no, you won't, and it actually was your lucky day. And of course, you can go into the probabilities, the odds of it, which is different than probabilities. The odds are, of all the chances in infinity, what is the chance that this specific outcome is going to be the one? I'm thinking of Doctor Strange in Avengers Endgame, where he uses the time stone to look at all the infinite possibilities of the scenario, and he says there's only a one in a million, 1 in a billion, whatever it is, chance that this is going to go the way we want it to. And that is not a very accurate way to predict the future. And therefore, to me, it's not a good way to ask a question, because you're leading yourself towards disappointment at least 50% of the time, right? Or at least with 50% odds that you're going to get an answer that you're not happy with, or that you're going to get an answer that ultimately does not turn out to be true. Now, this is also why I don't like asking questions about other people, right? If someone says, does my boyfriend really love me, right? The card could say yes or it could say no. And either of those could be true or could be not. And this is a situation where, unfortunately, by asking the question, does my partner love me? Now what you're doing is you're putting the partner and their feelings back into that power seat that we talked about in earlier videos, right? And it just reduces your chances of being accurate by 50%. Now, for some people who believe, above the partner in the power seat is God or the universe or fate or destiny or whatever it is, you might be inclined to put greater weight onto the answer that you receive. But at the end of the day, the only way that you will truly know the answer to those types of questions is by talking to that other person and hearing their side and hearing their perspective, right? So if your question is, does my partner love me? The questions that I would prefer to ask are, why am I having second thoughts about this? What am I picking up on? What feelings am I getting that's leading me to question the love that they have for me, right? And without exploring what might be going on in their head, that gives you a chance to explore what might be going on in yours. So maybe you've noticed changes in behavior, or, maybe you realize through your healthy yes and healthy no exercise that really that question of does my partner love me is really coming from a place of low self-esteem or fear of abandonment or rejection. And maybe it doesn't actually line up with that person's thoughts or with their true feelings, right? So when you're asking your yes or no question, you have to account for the possibility of a negative, like a false positive or a false negative, right? An answer that just does not turn out to be true. And because you can't know that information until the situation has fully played out, it just doesn't seem to me like a good or smart or well-reasoned way to make a choice, right? Like, let's say you're in a relationship, you've been in it for a while, and you're thinking about next steps, but you're not sure if they are, right? So you go to your tarot reader and you say, is he going to propose? Does he love me? Whatever. And you get positive answers. Maybe that leads you to avoid the conversation with the partner, for one thing, which of course is a huge problem, I would say. But it also leads you to put stock in this projected version of your relationship. So rather than going to that person and saying, hey, I want to talk about our future, you go to a tarot reader and say, hey, tell me about my future, right? And now you're almost third partying in an additional power seat, which is either the tarot reader, and they could be putting their own feelings. If they know you well, maybe they're able to give a little bit better advice if it's advice from a friend. But in most cases, the only people who are going to really understand that relationship is you and the person that is in that relationship with you, right? And using tarot as kind of a back door to try to understand what someone else might be feeling is a slippery slope, I would say, right? Now, it's not to say that you can't or shouldn't or never will, or that any reader who tries to answer these questions with you is a fraud. I'm not saying any of that at all, because in many cases, you can play sort of a hypothetical game with yourself. Now, of course, you can only do this as well as you know the other person, and you can only do this as well as you know yourself. But if I know my partner really well, and maybe I'm feeling he doesn't love me anymore because he's gone quiet, he's been moody, right? We don't have as much chemistry lately, or whatever those things may be. Those are not bad reasonings. Those are not false, intuitive hits. Those are things that you're picking up on. Now, if you were to go to the root of projection and fear, it would be, my fear of abandonment jumps up and says he's about to leave you for sure, right? And that could just be something that I've inherited through my own life journey. Maybe there's been a pattern of people leaving me and so on, and this is a fear that I have, right? But on the other hand, if I know him well, and I can say, you know what, sometimes his behavior does change in this way, what might be going on with him that could cause it, other than he doesn't love me anymore? Maybe he's been busy at work. Maybe he's, hasn't slept well the past couple of nights, and so on. And that can change someone's behavior without it being catastrophic to the relationship. And so the best person to give advice about your situation with your partner is yourself and your partner, right? But these tools can be used to give you maybe ideas of different perspectives, different things to consider, as long as you are always checking the advice that you're getting against your feelings. Does this feel true for me? Does this sound like the person I know? Does this track with the history of our relationship? You know, sometimes these fears come out of nowhere, and sometimes it's really, you know, that fear of taking the next step in yourself. Maybe you think that you're ready to commit, maybe you're getting married, maybe you're moving in, and that the weight of that decision causes you to almost say, oh, hang on, maybe this relationship isn't working out, because it's actually the fear that it is, right? And this is all very complicated, and you can hear about it in psychology and, you know, trauma therapy and things like that, where people realize that having gone through something changes their perspective and changes their projection and changes what they expect as future outcomes. I've always been disappointed before, so this time will be no different, right? And once you can really, again, trace those threads of thoughts that you're having back into your own self. Don't worry about what they're thinking and feeling for the most part. Think about what you are thinking and feeling. Try to figure out what is causing this fear that I'm having, or what is causing me to have this question in the first place. Why is it that I feel maybe uncomfortable to have this conversation with this person, that I feel like I need to go and get advice from someone else, whoever that may be, and whatever tools they might use? And of course, some people do therapy, some people do counseling, some people have, you know, accountability friends, and some people, you know, follow religion, and they find answers and peace to these questions in those avenues, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as going back to as long as going back to the original chart of whether or not this feels aligned with what I know, what I feel is best for me. That's going to be really how you make that decision, right? And at the end of the day, when it comes to relationship things, I would always say the solution is going to be having the courage to talk to the other person about it, because that's the only way that you can hear their perspective on an issue, right? So hopefully that all makes sense. So what I like to do, instead of asking a do they question or a will I question, I like to use should I, because this lends nicely to a yes or no answer without putting anybody else up here. And if you feel someone's jumping up here, then that's your flag to say, you know what, let me reevaluate how I'm making this decision. So let's go back to, should I cut my hair and dye it pink? I did that once. It was fun. I loved it, right? Not everyone else did. Sometimes people look at you and they think, you know, you're a mom, you're working this type of job or whatever. This isn't how you should look. But again, that's the word should. Someone else's feelings say to you, this is not what you should do. Does that determine how you make that decision, right? When you ask a should I question, it's should I, not do they think I should, because that's just a tricky way of putting them back in the power position, right? So going back to a yes or no outcome and a yes or no on whether I feel positive or feel good or feel aligned with that answer, this is the best way to ask a question in my view. Should I? And that isn't to say that it eliminates the possibility of there being something else in the power seat, right? For example, I had a job and they did tell me that if my hair was a certain color, I couldn't have that job. And it comes down to, do I need this job? Do I have other options? Is it such an important thing to me to have pink hair that I'm willing to sacrifice or to lose a job over that? And these are questions you have to ask yourself as you're reflecting on the issue, right? For people who believe in a higher power, that to me makes it a lot more interesting. Once you have firmly determined that regardless of what's up here in the power seat, you know, or whatever is causing the outcome of this yes or no chance type of outcome, right? As long as you know that your decision will be made based on your own feelings, it can be fun to think about what might be up there and what implications that it might have for how you make a decision. So for example, Let's say I'm choosing what to wear today, and I've got a red sweater and a blue sweater. Now, I briefly touched on it in an earlier video that I would never substitute either heads or tails or yes and no for two outcomes. I would never say yes is blue and no is red, because the reason I don't like that is because there's other colors, there's other options, and by boxing yourself in with only two choices, you might be missing another choice which could be better. So instead, I like to break those questions down individually. Should I wear the blue sweater? Yes or no? If no, should I wear the red sweater? Yes, okay, perfect, red. But what if red says no as well? Then I go back to my closet, I find this yellow sweater, and I think, you know what? I think I'm gonna actually go for this secret third option, which wouldn't have been factored in an either or question. So be careful with that. It's not this or that. It's should I this? Yes or no? Should I that? Yes or no? Right? And maybe your decision, your feelings are based on, I was really excited to match it with these shoes. This sweater looks great with these shoes. Yeah, I feel really good about that. Yes, right? And sometimes this is the part where random chance can still be fun and interesting, right? Let's say you wear that red sweater and you have a pretty normal day and you think that was it, right? But let's say you wore the blue sweater, and as you're going out today, someone in the coffee shop says to you, hey, I love that blue sweater. I used to have one just like it, and it sparks up this conversation with someone. Maybe it's the most interesting 6 minutes you've had in, the whole week. And that possible outcome of talking to that person was only triggered by your decision to wear the blue sweater. If you had worn the red one, there would have been no reason for you to talk. So these are interesting things that can't really be explained, and this is why I still have fun with the idea of whether it be fate, whether it be God, the highest good, the universe, destiny, random chance, whatever it may be. It's still fun to factor in or to take note of how that interplays with the decisions that you're making, because in some cases you'll have a random chance scenario like the one I just mentioned about chatting with someone at the coffee shop, and you think to yourself, you know what, I did feel really good about this blue sweater, and now I can see why, or now I feel even better about it because now I realize that this chance occurrence with this other person would have only happened under these circumstances. And what that really is meant to do, though, is not to put more power in the power seat and say, okay, now I always have to follow the tarot cards because this one decision worked out. What it's meant to do is reaffirm your own feeling. I was feeling really good about the blue one. Something really cool happened that would not have happened if I had made a different choice. This now puts more power back in the me section and says, when I feel good about a choice and I follow through on it, unexpected and positive things might happen. So it expands your consciousness again. But all of this starts with understanding how to best phrase your question and how to really understand and analyze the response that your feelings are giving you to that question. So should I is a good way. And again, you don't have to follow it just because the answer says, should I yes, should I no, right? But by asking it in that way, you're just cutting out the influence of other people's feelings, other people's expectations, or predicting something in the future, which you never will know if it turned out to be right until it either turns out to be right or not, right? So if you're looking for tarot to be useful to guide you into understanding yourself and to making good decisions, I hope that these tools and these ideas can give you a place to start that feels a little bit more attainable, rather than just jumping right into assuming that I trust in a higher power or, whatever it may be. We will build from here. And again, the questions that we have in our life are more complicated typically, because you do sometimes feel that you have to factor in, long-term thinking. Sometimes it's good to base it on a past experience. These are all ways that you can become better at predicting positive outcomes for yourself, as long as you remember to always check your yes and your no, make sure it's a healthy one, and make sure that your decision is being made in alignment with your own feelings and your own intuition. And the worst thing that could happen is the outcome of your decision might not be what you hoped for, but you can always feel good about the way you made your decision. And that gives you the confidence once you realize you're in a situation now that isn't what you were expecting. Now you can phrase yourself a new question and sort of jump off from that point. You're always making progress in that way rather than getting stuck in these loops of what do I believe in and is it true and is it real, right? So I'm going to leave that here for today. I hope that resonated. I hope that was interesting. I hope you could follow along. I'm Stephanie, and I hope you have a wonderful day.